So, fam, you have a little section here about one of my favorite people, Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
And how he was building a rainbow coalition, and that's why they killed him.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. People got to understand that Fred Hampton got killed at the age of 21. He was 3 months into his 21st birthday. It really was a shame. And why they killed him? Listen, the thing about Fred Hampton, and you go back and watch Fred Hampton speeches, he would very rarely leave out imperialism if he was ever talking about racism or authoritarianism or the government. You know what I'm saying? And the guy knew how to build coalitions. It was about being a revolutionist, whatnot. And he would even identify, and this is a great little, I took out this one. We've always played the one about, like, you know, people having to come together, that there's two classes. And this one over here, you know, they are believing that they are fighting with each other because I'm white and I hate black people, and I'm black and I hate hillbillies, and I'm hillbillies and I hate Asians, and I'm Asians. And if we would stop for a second and use some common sense, we would realize that they got us pitted against each other, and it's them we have to go after. And it doesn't make a difference, you know, white supremacy. You know, we talk about most of the oligarchs, they're white. Most of the elitists, they're white. But it doesn't make a difference in certain situations. And he talks right here, this speech right here in particular, because he also understood how education is so important. And I'm not talking about that fugazi education they give out there. Real education nowadays, what I'm saying. Back in the days, you go back 40 years, a high school diploma was almost equivalent to a college degree in certain situations. Not a college degree like Johnny's, where he got a serious degree, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of the degrees out there, you go to school, you get out, there's no job for you, even in your degree. So this is Fred Hampton talking about, number one, how important it is to understand who your oppressor really is. And number two, education is the key. And if we don't dig into education, you know, we're lost. We got to get education back. It starts with education. Go ahead, John.
You basically knowing my ideology, basically you knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast for Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of social action thing. You know, you set that up, brother. I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people. Run for the people. And by the people.
What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, you know, whatever, you know, the people in the community decide. You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, the way we look at struggle is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. You know, right. We're talking about forming it right. You know, it's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
You can form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Yomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the day of the end thing, Yomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you know, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more oppression. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face. But he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressor. He did, because of no education. And the people that had been educated, they said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what it's going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Yomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mamas was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. What we saying is, that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people that take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's a people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa now, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we'll have Negro imperialists.
Yeah, we see, brother. The reason we don't do a lot of talking because what you say is full conclusion with us.
He call out Obama before it happened? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody there, but is that, you know what I'm saying? He was saying, if people aren't educated, and that's the thing, fam, education has been sacked in this country. You know, not only has the education, the level of education has gone down, but the price has gone so far up that it's made it almost impossible for somebody to get college unless they do what? You know, join the military, go off and kill themselves. Right. You know, 22 kids that killed themselves today from PTSD from that war, and most of them were seeking an education. You know what I'm saying? And George Carlin told us a long time ago, fam. Did you want to say anything else before we play George Carlin? Because George Carlin, it was vintage when he was telling us. George Carlin ain't around today, but once again, education, so important.
There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media news, all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back, so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hardworking people. White collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hardworking people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Man.
How long did he
100%.
say it, fam?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I mean, that's one of the most famous speeches George Carlin ever did. And a lot of people, really woke up when he started telling it like it is, and talking about, how they don't give a crap about anybody. The whole thing is working as it should. And I really liked what Fred Hampton was talking about, educating people in the Black Panther Party, because I think that's something that's missing in the progressive movement, is a sort of I think people are doing it independently, but if there was a movement to have like a re-education of sorts, of learning not from the Western imperialist perspective, but from actual truth and actual history of how things happen, then I think you would get people knowing. A lot of a lot of Gen Z, like, this is the opportunity for us to educate them on, while this is going on against police brutality against with BLM and supporting all of these things that are happening, and while they're realizing how horrible Trump is, that we educate them that Donald Trump is, of course, a creation of the system that people like Bill Clinton, like Joe Biden, like George W. Bush, like George Bush Sr., like all of these, all the way to Reagan and before Reagan, created. This country was founded on these things, on these the oligarchy being able to control the media, being able to control what information you get, and so a lot of the things we get are skewed. I think that's the next step, is the education of the next generation, so they don't make the same mistake we made when we voted for Barack Obama, when we voted for those symbolic politicians. We can't allow that to happen again.
Gloria Jones says it's not even education nowadays, it's just high-priced programming. And she's so true. If I had a child today, I wouldn't send him to school. I'd homeschool him. And I know a lot of times you say, oh, the homeschool kids are the weird ones. They're the antisocial ones and stuff. But yeah, I'm not down with the shit they're teaching them, the programming in school, whatnot. And if you talk about programming, he also talked about it's what I'm saying, we want to make sure that we get the right people in there. That's why people have to be educated to understand. They have to have critical thinking to understand what's going around them. Francois Duvalier, aka Papa Doc, was a brutal dictator, and the literacy rate, was like 10%. Like 10% of the population could read by the time this guy left office, and he just kept his people very poor. In suffrage, he had this whole these type of goons, Johnny, that would go out there and they were like this secret police force that would arrest and kill people. He would have people's heads chopped off, his political opponents, and leave them in villages for people to see. And I love the fact that Papa Doc would point out these things. It's like, it's not black and white. You got to go further than the racism that's there. You got to go further, because it all leads down to imperialism and authoritarianism, and that's what we got to look at. You know what I'm saying? They'll put anybody in there because, once again, Papa Doc was a friend of westernized, business, so therefore they let it happen. They didn't give a shit. There was racist as can be, and they let it happen. The elites, and that was pointed out as well. And I just want to point out, to the assassination of Fred Hampton, fam. It was a hit. It was a hit job. They said, and when they looked into this, and once again, he was 21 years old. And the second paragraph says, tragically, Hampton and fellow Panther Mark Clark had both been shot dead, and 4 other Panthers in the apartment had critical gunshot wounds. Police were uninjured and had fired their guns 90 to 99 times, almost 100 times, in sharp contrast. And the Panthers had shot once from the shotgun held by Mark Clark, which had mostly been fired when Clark had been fatally shot in the heart and was falling to the ground. You know what I'm saying? They obtained a whole layout from an FBI agent. So here it is again. Your deep state, your intelligence department working against you, and they killed Fred Hampton. Because why? He was building a rainbow coalition. Fam, I want to be a Black Panther because they're social / communist revolutionists that are against imperialism. And that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they killed him. That's why when Malcolm X became the Malcolm X he was when he was killed, That was the person they were killing. That person who was building a rainbow coalition. We talked about the Poor People's Campaign, Martin Luther King Jr. That's when they killed him. Bacon's Rebellion, we go back and talk about it. It's like, hold on. We can't let these people of different race and classes get together. You know what I'm saying? Because they'll get together and they'll kill us. So what do? They keep us divided. They killed this man at 21 years of age. 21 years of age. And his son was famously on the movie Block Party. If you haven't seen it, with Dave Chappelle. It was directed by Michel Gondry, who directed our favorite movie, Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind. But Mos Def was there. And Mos Def talks about, this is Fred Hampton Jr. And Fred Hampton Jr. went up there and talked. And Fred Hampton Jr.'s words were, release all political prisoners. Release all political prisoners. You know what I'm saying? This is politics, baby. Politics 101, imperialism, and they'll get your ass. They the imperialists, need to be brought to heel, fam.
I'm sure the cops were fearing for their life, fam. They shot 99 times. I'm sure they were scared.
To the guy dropped his shotgun as he was getting shot in the heart.
I just can't believe that. So yeah, fam, just anything else that you have?
Well, Tony Watches Closely says, thanks for showing the Hampton and Carlin called it way back then. And he said, thanks for showing that. No problem, Tony Watches Closely. You know, he's a big, we have all dug into Fred Hampton on this show for a long, long time. He's always been one of my favorite guys out there, and the messages he spoke, you know what I'm saying, keep us, George Carlin has it said. George Carlin was a Fred Hampton guy. George Carlin would say, let's talk about the things that make us alike. Let's not talk about our differences, because that's all the media points out is our differences. You know why? They keep us fighting with each other so they can run off with all the money. Simple plan happens to work. You know what I'm saying? And we got to get a hold of that. We got to understand that. You know what I'm saying? I would never sit here and say that racism doesn't exist, especially institutionalized racism, especially in the police department, and especially, you know what I'm saying, in other areas. You know, we need to fix this, but we also understand that at the end of the day, it's imperialists up at top who are for global domination, and the cops are that arm of that imperialist state. And that's something we have to take down. We can no longer look the other way as Yemenis children are dying. One child dies every 10 minutes at our say, at our words, at our actions. We can't do that anymore. We have to become educated in this. We have to educate people at this. We have to understand what's going around the globe, and we need to stop it. We can't stop one without stopping the other. We have to bring them both to heel, because then we can all go forward. The 99% reclaim our world, claim our world, because I believe we've never had it. Let's claim our world with beautiful resources. Let's spread love. Let's spread joy, and let's get these people. Let's bring these imperialists to heels.